Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, the Manga Man here, and this video is dedicated to World Trigger. The chapter officially released English translations yesterday. Unfortunately, due to other commitments and distractions, family matters mainly, I wasn't able to do the video. It literally, like, I was so busy that I completely forgot, which is why I did a catch up for solo leveling, the previous video to this, so feel free to check that out. And here we are talking about World Trigger 205. So without further ado, let's get into this review. So World Trigger chapter 205, a pretty decent chapter as always. We're still in orientation, so we're still getting a lot of information. The final pool of candidates is being picked. Some people are kind of thinking things out, and we get to see the picks. I won't necessarily go through every single pick, but we do get a highlight of a few that I found funny, that I thought I'd mention. I did make a note of them, so please bear with me, of the order. So the first one that gets picked is huge, no surprise. It's kind of ultimately kind of telling you in a way through these picks what people think of the caliber of these people. Of course, they still think he's Michael Cron's nephew or son or relative, and he's from Canada, but they've seen that he's talented, and that's why he's picked number one. Kind of like Azuma was picked early, and Kagawera was picked early, and so on and so forth. Then we see Yuba's picked, so he's kind of considered up there. This part was funny but interesting. Kotori was picked earlier than Kitora, and Kitora is essentially an A-ranked individual, so it'll be interesting to see why that is. Maybe it's because Kotori is more of a kind of an ace type of character, and more offensive minded, and they needed that in their squad. But I found that interesting. What was hilarious about the whole thing was the fact that she's going to be on the same team as Osamu, so him having to deal with that personality is going to be hilarious to see, especially when they're sealed up in a place for a week, having to deal with each other. That's going to be a really good thing to look at. And then, like I said, after that is we get Kotora. Later on down the line we see Ninomoya, and this part honestly warmed my heart and made me chuckle at the same time, because Nino's like, who shall I pick? I'm not really interested. I've got Amatori Chika now. I don't really care. And he's like, who gets on well with that? Or Emma does. And you can see Emma's basically like, please pick me, please pick me, please. And you can see he's praying so much that you can literally see it kind of project out of his consciousness into the world, and he's like, please pick me, please. And he gets picked, and he's so relieved, and Chick's like, yeah, we're on the same team. And it was cute that their interactions it's very wholesome, but the fact that he likes her and he hasn't really told her, and they get on, and they're both snipers, it all works. But what this does as well is Nino's basically picked 3 snipers. He's so confident in his own ability, but people are not necessarily seeing past what this means. I'll explain. So Azuma is like the king of snipers, right? He's basically the Soge king, right? And Nino is basically this badass shooter with crazy triumph. So they're both experienced, they've both been on the squad together, and they both can teach Chika, right? But Emma is at essentially the same ranking as Chika, as in they both B rank, but he gets on with it, he's familiar with it. So sometimes relaying the message through somebody, not just somebody you respect, but somebody you have a friendship, a kinship with, or some type of camaraderie with, it's a lot easier to accept that information. So it's quite a smart move when you think about it. And then of course he doesn't really care because he's got the right people. So it is going to be really a good molding effort, because you got the upper echelon of experience, and Emma's kind of in between and quite smart himself in his field. So it would be a good way to kind of see that progression for Chika to get up to Emma's kind of skill, and then make her way up to Azuma and Nino's skill. I don't think this is going to be possible in a week and a bit that they've got, but it's just cool. This experience is going to push her forward, and she's going to really learn from it, amongst other things. And then this part I specifically wanted to put in here, because in chapter 203, and I remember when I was doing the video, and they showed Urishima, and I was like, who is that? Is that a person from channel team? And there's a lot of speculation about that at that time, and it wasn't addressed in that video because I didn't know, I'll be honest. Because if you look at the border briefing file that I got, it doesn't have a picture for him at that time. What kind of went over my head, and what I forgot to mention in chapter 2 or 4, is when he's eventually picked, they show a little picture of him, like a kind of a chibi-esque picture of him, and I didn't really touch upon that really. It kind of went over my head. But there was an interesting statement that was made that basically snipers and Urishima were gonna get picked last based on that, because it's no surprise. And I was thinking when I was reading that, why is it no surprise? What is it about him that people don't like? Because it's shown in this chapter that he's a captain. Okay, it's kind of low mid ranking, but it's shown that he's a captain. But we find out why. He's basically a greedy scumbag. I don't know how much of a scumbag he is, but he's very greedy and he's money oriented. He asked the question, he goes, basically, we're going to get awarded for our actions in this test. But, you know, the A rank people go on these away missions anyway, and they get part of their job description. We're not. So do we get promoted, or do I get promoted to A rank if I do this? Do I get paid handsomely for this as well? To which Kido basically says, no, you won't be promoted to A rank. You have to go through the promotion, but they'll give you a stipend. So to track back a little bit, there's a diagram that's shown that essentially states that A rank people will get a base salary regardless, and they'll get more for these missions and extra activities that do. Basically, B rank people purely get commission. It's kind of like being a contractor in a job, and it's a commission based job only, and a manager is like getting a salary regardless, and then probably a bonus depending on how well his team does. So it's kind of like that. Probably not the best analogy to use, but it was interesting that was brought up, because what the author and writer is doing essentially is bringing in elements of real life into the story, and we get a weird kind of character trait for Urishima as well, and confirmation of him as well, all at the same time. So there was a character with the initials initials MM in my video previously that we had mentioned this, so shout out to the people that mentioned in my comment section. I guess you were right for the person who mentioned it. That being said, we then move on to another statement. I found this question really interesting, the fact that it came from Osamu, and it kind of addresses our point of view, the reader's point of view, because we did speculate on this, and the main thing that came out of it was what's going on with the other A rank people, because Kotora's here, and basically they're going to be judging the first phase of the test, and they're going to be involved in the second phase of the test. Now, the first phase of the test, if you recall, is basically a week-long sealed environment to replicate traveling through space or through the neighborhood to kind of simulate that process. And then phase 2 is like 36 hours of combat, and they're going to be involved in that, which is good. Now, that being said, they're going to get told 3 p.m. of this orientation day of what to bring, what to prepare for. So that I found interesting as well. Now, the one thing that it annoys me, but relatively speaking it makes sense, kind of, is the judges being A rank people. I have no problems with that, because the A rank people are experienced, powerful people. But that character that's on the first A rank team, who's considered the weakest A rank member, him judging you, I'm like, I don't know. At the same time, he's considered stronger than Osamu, but Osamu's probably one of the weaker physically people than in the B ranks, because he even struggled in his entrance exam. He has of course grown since then and become more wise and more skilled, but the fact that this person can beat him 75% of the time doesn't say much, because if you think about skills wise, there was a comparison done between Komurakami, Kagaweda, and our favorite Yuma Kuga, and 2/3 of the time Kagaweda wins against both Murakami and Kuga. Doesn't mean that they're horrible. It's one of those things where because of the way he's got to where he's got to, he might have got stronger, but I just don't see the... I don't like the guy, basically. I just don't see the point in him. So, him being there, being all like, yeah, you know, I'm A-rank and I'm gonna judge you. It's like, get out of here. Who are you, man? I don't mind everybody else. I don't see the point in him. Anyway, that's my rant over. Also, as a reminder, just in terms of the schedule, as far as orientation is concerned, it's a Thursday. The Sunday there's going to be a meeting with the captains, an interview, and then on a later date is when everything's going to kick off. So I expect in the next couple of chapters, or it might be wrapped up in just this one chapter, this is where the interview process is going to take place with the captains, where they discuss strategies and figure out strengths and weaknesses if they haven't been established already, and maybe possibly a kind of a short training montage of them preparing, you know, for the phases that are upcoming. That being said, nice chapter, loads to look forward to. As always, you can't kind of worry too much about what's going to happen next. Just get excited. World Trigger chapter coming up in the next month, and hopefully we'll have some anime by then as well. That being said, have a lovely day. I'll see you next time. Peace.